What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about Xbox in 2025, and they honestly are pretty poised to break out, to have a really, really big year. Now, I can already kind of tell some of the comments, right? You could say, well, you say that every year. People say that every year. This year was kind of mixed, I guess, depending on who you are. Like, Indiana Jones, I think, is amazing, amazing value, and one of the better games of the year, and being on Game Pass and being from Xbox. Games like Stalker 2, Hellblade, and then, of course, right, Call of Duty, which you've got to start lumping in the Xbox ecosystem all of a sudden. Now, this was a year, 2024, of a lot of games coming to PlayStation, and the movement of Xbox as a console meaning less and less, and more of like Xbox as an ecosystem. But what we're here to do in this video is just kind of talk about 2025, what I'm excited for. Okay, this is it's a more personal type thing. Again, it depends on the kind of person you are. If these games aren't up your alley, obviously you don't think Xbox is maybe going to have a great year. We'll see how it goes, but I do think, we talked about it in the PlayStation preview, when it comes to like games, say, releasing from each of these companies, Xbox is probably one or two. Depends on, I think, what Nintendo does. I kind of want to give it to Nintendo and just say they're going to have the best year in 2025. New console. They probably have a new Mario game, maybe even a new Mario Kart. I find that almost impossible to compete with. Even Call of Duty, I don't think, could really compete with that. So yeah, that's just kind of where I'm coming from right now. I think Xbox will probably have the second best year. But if a bunch of these games come to PlayStation, you could argue, okay, well, what is Xbox, right? Again, I'm kind of talking about the games that are coming from the company of Xbox. So in terms of those big exclusives, and I mean exclusives also being made from them, right? Avowed, Doom: The Dark Ages. We're going to talk a little bit about each of these kind of more specifically, but Avowed, Doom, Fable, South of Midnight, The Outer Worlds 2. That's kind of the major ones. I mean, if there is a Call of Duty, which I imagine there will be, that obviously makes a really big impact. And that, to me, honestly, is kind of enough. I mean, you could say that's it. You could have a Gears of War maybe slide in, highly doubtful, but it could. State of Decay 3, same thing. There's the rumors that State of Decay is being moved. You imagine things like Gears, State of Decay, Perfect Dark. These are like 2026 games. They could have a very, very good 2 years here in 2025 and 2026. And then you have just the games that are on Game Pass, which there's a couple of them. The ones I kind of want to highlight is Expedition 33. I keep talking about that game, as I think that's going to be just a really, really good one. And I think that's honestly a pretty underrated one to have on Game Pass. I think that's going to be really good value, because I think the game could be good, and then it'll also, be free on Game Pass. Things like FBC Firebreak. Now that's also going to be on PlayStation, okay, and through, I believe, PS Plus. So it's on Game Pass. It's a thing you can talk about with Xbox, but it will also be there. And then Mixtape. Mixtape is the other one I kind of want to throw in. That was that cool little game announced at their June event that is more like a road trip, like music playlist type thing that I think is just going to be really, really phenomenal. There is a biasness because Smashing Pumpkins are in that game, and they're my favorite band, but they got a lot. They got a lot coming. So in terms of those big exclusives, okay, let's just kind of start in the order that I said it. So Avowed, I don't know the actual like mass impact, I guess, but I do think the game is going to be good. I'm expecting good things from it. It's the first one, when you think of February. Avowed is kind of sandwiched in because kind of every game under the sun comes out in February. I hope Avowed is able to kind of stand on its own and kind of break free of that. And I don't know, like leading, and I've said this for years now, so it's not like I'm changing my tune. Leading into Starfield, I kept saying I actually had more confidence in Avowed being like the better overall game than Starfield. Now, I liked Starfield, but I wouldn't say I loved it. I wouldn't say I didn't like it either, though, right? So it was kind of like in the middle for me. We'll see. We'll see what Avowed is like, but I'm expecting good things. I don't think this is the standout game of the year. Okay, this is just, I think, if you want to talk about padding, like you got your 1-2 punch that we'll get to, right? Depending on how it goes, you got your 1-2 punch. Avowed is kind of like that second tier that comes in nice and hot, right? Is like really solid. Honestly, to me, when I look at the list, the biggest game is Doom. Doom 2016, Doom Eternal are unbelievably good games. They are Game of the Year type games. They are some of the better shooters out there. So Doom: The Dark Ages, I mean, we've only seen like a 2.5-minute trailer, okay? We definitely need to see more of it. And if it comes out April, May, June, somewhere in there, maybe in the summer, maybe even go a little bit further, we do have to see it soon. And hopefully, I think Doom is a prime candidate to be shown if Xbox still does that January like developer direct. I think Doom makes a lot of sense to be shown shown there. Just we need more of like a breakdown. We need to make sure that it's as good as that trailer looks, and it's as good as like the heritage of Doom has looked. But this is the one. This is that one punch to me. Fable is actually the number 2 punch I'll get to in a second. But Doom, I feel like is different than Fable in that Doom I really think is kind of, I mean, it has been consistently very good. I think it's the one you can kind of count on, and also it's gonna be like gigantic. Like historically it's been gigantic. I do believe it comes out on PlayStation day 1. You can correct me if I'm wrong there. So again, we're talking about, you can talk about the console. I mean, I'll tell you right now, like flat out, like the console is dying and they don't care about the console. I mean, we've talked about that, you know, but if you want me to be like very just in your face honest about it, that's not really what this video is about, I guess, is the actual console. But it's more about, again, Xbox. They're making Doom. The console itself, I mean, if you have it, great. If you don't really need it. I think even more so going into 2025. But Doom is the number one thing, I think, from them. It's honestly, and you'll see, because I'm going to do my rankings video of all the games coming out in 2025. Doom is like a top 5 easily for me, for like most anticipated, just because of 2016 and Eternal. I think they're going to knock it out of the park. Now, Fable's a little bit different, right? Because Fable, I do think, can be an unbelievable 1-2 punch with Doom, okay? And I guess if you have like Call of Duty, that you got like your 1, 2, 3 right there. Fable is more iffy, though. Fable is like, if it does well, or if it's good, okay, if it actually achieves what it's trying to do, then it can be like one of the better games of the year. If it doesn't, and if it's terrible, or if it's just disappointing, or, you know, whatever it might be, I think Fable can go either way. I think Fable can go either way more than probably any of these other games. See, like South of Midnight, smaller tier, right? That's one of those padding type games that I think can be a real nice, just smaller tier game, okay? The Outer Worlds 2 even, like, I mean, that's not as small as South of Midnight, but that's like an Avowed, okay? It's a game that's not, I think, to the level of Doom or like a Fable at its peak, or like a Halo, Gears of War. They keep going down the list, right? The Outer Worlds is not that. But I think the ceiling is actually quite high. I think The Outer Worlds 2 could actually be maybe the second best game from them in the year if it does everything it's achieving to do, okay? So I'm talking kind of about tiers and all these level type things. Fable, I do think, has potential to be like the second biggest thing besides Doom. And again, if you do Call of Duty, I guess the third biggest thing. I think it can do it. I really, really believe that. But that's if it nails everything. And to me, they just haven't shown enough. There's obviously been a lot of controversy with like the looks and all that jazz. I mean, you can go into that. You can not. I don't really care too much. For me, it's the game, okay? When we see the game, that's kind of the biggest issue, I would say, right now with Fable. Now, Fable is probably like an October, November game, okay? It's probably the last game from Xbox to come out in 2025. So they do have time, but there is a lot to show us. And when I say a lot, I mean basically everything. Like even the newest trailer, which was better. It was definitely better than the first one. It still didn't really, like, it was snippets, and I mean, maybe it was like some takedown or some like kill animations was like the best we got in terms of gameplay, but not much. So I need some combat, I need some quest structure, I need some dialogue choices, I need some voicing. I mean, we got some voice in the trailers, but I need more of like, give me a side quest, show me like a 30-minute side quest in Fable, and that will, I think, help. But I do think it has a ton of potential, could be one of the better things, and then also, like I said, maybe it falls apart. I mean, if it does fall apart, it'll fall apart. And I guess one final thing to talk about that I just actually thought about on the fly when recording this is those old games. You know, I've made the videos on Transformers, and, you know, you got like Marvel Ultimate Alliance and Deadpool and all that stuff. There's a lot of, I think, behind-the-scenes stuff that shows that they're coming. I've covered specifically a lot of the Transformers games on the channel. I don't know if that's like going to be Xbox specific. I think it just brings up the same kind of discussions of like, I mean, when you revive an old thing or a thing that once was available everywhere, you bring it back, whether you're undelisting it, you're listing it again or whatever, and you only have it be on certain platforms when originally it was on all. We'll see how it goes, okay? But I mean, again, this is the situation where, like, this is why you have to kind of be like fluid. You kind of have to be able to jump, or at least I try to be, and jump around to like where these games are. But I do want to throw that in there because if like War for Cybertron, Fall of Cybertron, Devastation, you know, some of the Marvel stuff, Spider-Man, you know, if you think like Web of Shadows and that kind of era of stuff, if those games come back and if they're exclusive, I mean, that's to me, that's a big deal. Even them just coming back is a big deal. So that's something else that is probably more of like that mid-tier, right? Like mixtape and Expedition 33. It's not the heavy hitters. It's games that are 10 to 15 years old coming back, but it's important to somebody like me. It's actually very important, and I actually would look forward to that more than some of the games that I mentioned today in this video. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind. But no, I think they're poised for a big year. I really, really believe that. I think they're going to have a lot of good games coming out, and who knows, I've been saying this for a while, and I don't know, it's maybe controversial depending on what kind of person you are. I think Xbox's future is more publisher versus like console manufacturer, and I feel like they've proven that right as these past couple of years have gone on. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I mean, it is a little disappointing to people, including myself. I have a Series X that have supported their consoles, but I think this is going to be an interesting year of kind of proving it again, right? Because you might have a lot of really amazing games published by them, but then how many of them are just exclusive to Xbox? How many games like a Hellblade 2 does that make it to PlayStation in 2025, right? Indiana Jones obviously does come to PlayStation 2025, so it'll be an interesting year of I think they got really high quality, or could have really high quality, like published games, but then it's like, okay, well then what does the ecosystem of Xbox look like? Well, it's gonna, I think, continue that trend of playing anywhere. And when you're playing on PlayStation, I guess technically you're playing an Xbox, depending on the advertisement that you're watching on any given day. But that's the system, right? Is playing these games kind of anywhere. So that's what I think we're kind of in for in 2025, is more of like the setup of how Xbox is going to look. But I do think this is probably going to be one of their better like published years. And this past year, again, like Stalker, Indiana Jones, Call of Duty, Hellblade 2, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good 1 through 4 punch. And that's just immediately off the top of my head. And they had more than that. But that's pretty darn good. And if they can do 6-7 games, in 2025, and then 2026 drop a freaking Gears of War on us, even if it comes to PlayStation, it'll be weird. It'll totally be different, but it'll still be big. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.